was June 22nd, 2015. Sara Smith was found dead in room E4 at Groves High School. Her cause of death was determined to be subdermal hematoma from a head injury. Sara was said to be arguing with a teacher after finals, but no teacher was ever found to be with her. The police's main suspect was a Charles Brown, a high school senior who was known for having a relationship with Sara before her death. A note was found on Sara's body telling her to meet with Charles after classes ended. When Sara got to the room, Charles was waiting for her, and they entered the room together. After a janitor saw them fighting in the hall, Charles left the classroom without Sara. It was not until 4:06 p.m. when the police were called by Ralph Case, the janitor. At the crime scene, we identified 9 different blood splatters and samples. Here we have evidence A located on the victim's head. We determined the blood type as B negative, which matches Sara's. As you can see, the blood pooled around her head, with streaks of blood on her head. Next, we have evidence E, F, and G. We have the single passive drop to the right of her left wrist, the bloody handprint, F, on the victim's left wrist, and then we have G, the blood all over the victim's left hand. All 3 of these samples were determined to be AB positive. This matched the blood type of Charles Brown. Next, we have evidence H. This is the blood seen here on the left side of the victim's face. This was determined to be B negative and matched Sara's blood. Next, we have evidence R and M. This includes the cluster of passive drops west of the broken beaker, R, and the single passive drop located east of the broken beaker. These 2 samples came back as AB positive, matching Charles Brown. Next, we have evidence W. This is the bloody handprint previously mentioned, located on the south wall cabinets. This matched Charles Brown blood, AB positive. Here we have evidence AA and Z, located on the west wall, right of the door, and the ceiling above. The 3 blood streaks would indicate the victim was struck 4 times while facing the west wall, with the attacker's back to the west wall. All these 3 streaks matched Sara's blood being negative. Next is our 8th sample, evidence Y. This is located on the top of the DNA model. This is a passive pool of blood from the DNA model that dripped off. Lastly is the evidence DD. This is the few small droplets of blood east of the foods book. I believe these to be a few drops off the murder weapon.
The powders found at the crime scene were baking soda and powdered sugar. The baking soda had spilled from the beaker before the crime. Charles Brown came from the foods room bringing the powdered sugar with him, which was found on Sara and Charles' foods book. The foods book found at the crime scene belonged to Charles Brown. We know from Sara's friends that they used to be in a relationship and were commonly seen together in the halls. Their relationship at Sara's time of death is unknown. Charles was lying because he said Sara was stressing out about her chemistry grade and arguing with her chemistry teacher when she didn't have chemistry. James Sherman says Charles was alone after school. Charles left Sara a note saying he missed her and wanted to talk to her after school. Charles Brown's fingerprints were found on the DNA model at the crime scene, and his blood was also found on the crime scene on a handprint. From the ink chromatography, we know that the pens were the vis-a-vis pens, which are more commonly found in Mrs. Trupiano's room.
To figure out whose blood was present at the crime, scientists used gel electrophoresis. Gel electrophoresis is the process of extracting DNA and sorting the DNA into strands. It was very clear that the blood found near the broken glass was Sara Smith's blood. Also, the blood found underneath Sara's fingernails was linked back to Charles Brown. To prove this was true evidence, detectives matched the patterns of each fragment band in each lane.
3 pieces of hair were found at the crime scene. The first was found near the pool of blood under Sara's head. We have concluded that this piece belongs to Sara. A second piece was found a few inches from the first piece, and it belonged to Trupiano. The third hair was found furthest from the body, and it belonged to Charles Brown. In order to match the hair to the person, we must look at a few things. The first is color. Then we look at the medulla, or the base of the hair. We look for any distinguishable patterns, cracking, or bumps. 2 sets of prints were found at the scene. The first was on the base of the DNA model, which was found about a foot from the hand of Sara. It shows the model was gripped around the stand, holding up the DNA. Right between the hair and the prints belonging to Charles found at the crime scene, there is no doubt that he was at the crime scene.
Chaz and I were just trying to find a ride home. We passed by room E4 and saw Sara crying, so figured it would be a bad time. I luckily found a friend of mine as we passed the media center. Sam only had one spot, so I ended up taking it. And we ended up playing Call of Duty till like 2 a.m. that night. It was sweet.
I was called down at about noon to room E4 to clean up a mess. I had a few other things to do first. I wasn't concerned about anyone getting hurt because most of the kids were out of the building enjoying summer. Apparently, one of the chemistry teachers dropped a beaker on the floor, and there was glass and its contents everywhere. When I eventually got around to cleaning the room, I saw Sara on the floor and notified Kathy her leaving.
I saw Sara crying from the hallway. Sara can sometimes be a little crazy with grades. She told me that earlier she was going to fail chemistry, and that her teacher did not like her. It didn't surprise me when I saw them arguing. She needed every point she could get. We passed by, then left to find a ride home.